Hello, very warm welcome to my video blog once again. Today I'm going to show you how easy it is actually to import data into the Microsoft Power Platform without even writing one line of code. So the JSON interface format is very popular these days. You will find a lot of interfaces, web services on the internet hosted by government authorities, industrial bodies, standard bodies, etc. Some of these are free, you can access, while others, of course, you would need a private key against a small fee, or at least against registration. So in this blog today I will be importing some Grand Prix data into the Power Platform, into the Common Data Service. As you can see, there is a public endpoint here exposed, which we can execute here on the fly, and there we get our response body with some data related to Formula 1, like the country, the name of the ring, the most driver wins, the number of drivers who drove on this track, etc. So I will start first by creating this new flow in Power Automate. I will set it as an instant so that I can immediately trigger it and test it, and I will choose the manually trigger a flow. So this is my trigger. I will add this step, which I will call pass JSON. It's a dot operation, and here I have to provide my content and the schema of the content, so the Swagger definition. So here in the content I'm going to hard-code the data sort of for this demo from the API here. But in reality, and I will show this in a future blog, that will be content coming from a live web service endpoint with a Swagger JSON definition. So what I'll do, I will take one example here, one example racetrack, Formula 1 racetrack, and I will use it as my sample to generate my schema. So this is a very handy tool in Power Automate, where based on a sample data that you give it, it will generate the schema for you. Okay, so I'll just copy the whole opening and close bracket as well. So generate from sample, paste, we will add the closing square bracket there so it matches the top, and remove the extra items there, and I can say done. And as you can see here, now it translated my sample JSON object into the schema, which is of course a very handy tool, power saving tool, and even for the non-technical people it will help a lot. So that's my schema. I will now proceed to copy and paste the whole response body here, because now I will need the whole, of course, response from the web service. Actually, there's a handy download button, so I can open that in my code editor and simply copy and paste from here. Please note, I am not writing any code, I am not generating any classes in Visual Studio. I am simply using these Power Automate user interface components. So there it is. This is my response, JSON response, following the schema here. And now, of course, I would like to do something with this data. So I can add a new step. So what's happening in the Power Automate step? Power Automate is going to translate the response body into actual components we can link in further Power Automate steps. So what I will do here, I will create a record in the Common Data Service. I will select my environment here. So I will select my build test environment, and before starting this demo I took the liberty to create a custom entity in CDS which I called F1 track, and I created some 3 sample fields that we get from the JSON payload. So we have the name, we have the reference, and we have the location of the track. I didn't create fields for all the for each of these components here. I just selected 3. So I will choose my F1 tracks entity, custom entity in CDS, which I just created. So there it is, F1 tracks, and then I will show the advanced options. So look at this. So here I'm going to map the fields of CDS with my JSON payload. And what this previous step, the parse JSON step, has done actually is translate that response into these easily selectable and clickable fields. So we're going to select the name, we're going to select the location, right, and we're going to select the reference. So these are the 3 fields I created in my custom entity. So circuit reference, save this. And what's also very handy here, once I click the save button, what Power Automate has done actually, it wrapped my step into a loop and applied to each loop. Why? Because it was intelligent enough also to realize that in our response payload we have actually multiple objects, multiple racetrack circuits. So now I will do the flow check, no errors, no warnings. We can save this and we can test it, and as you can see, during the first run of the flow it will fail. And this is also just to show you here that there is some validation also happening based on the schema, and that one of the records actually does not contain all the required entity components, all the required fields. And the fact it tells you here required properties are missing from object, and these are the most win drivers wins, the most wins constructor in this track, and the most wins driver. And it also is saying that it is the 55th object in our list here. So we will go ahead now and look up the 55th object. And here it is. This is the record which misses the most wins driver wins and the other missing properties here. So I'll go ahead and I will remove it there, copy and paste my response again, go back to the flow editor, to the input, to the content input, which, as I said, for this demo it is hard-coded here. So I've pasted it there, can save again, and now I can test, re-trigger the flow manually. And as you can see now, the JSON parsing was successful. I could also have, of course, removed the requirement of those properties. That's something which is enforced in the schema. So now, as you can see, without writing any code, I'm now updating data into the common data service from the JSON payload, which, as I said, could be any service in the world which is exposed as such. And there you can see my flow ran successfully. So now I am back on my entity, and if I go to the views, if I go to my active F1 tracks, there you can see the data, and I'll also add the other fields which were mapped in my flow. Of course, I could have decided to map more fields, but just for the sake of this demo, that was not the case. I just mapped 3 fields. So now this demonstrated that my data is in the Power Platform, and of course in the Common Data Service this exposes my data to much more possibilities. I can export the data to a data lake, ADLS and Azure, and of course I can also synchronize this data to Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations via the override feature, and also to other ERPs in the cloud. So you can use CDS, Common Data Service, and the Common Data Model either to then action on the data within CDS in Power Apps or Model-Driven Apps or CRM apps, the Model-Driven apps, and or you can also use the CDS as a staging database for your data, and then move it along to data lakes, to finance and ops, and other systems you might be interested in. I hope you found this tutorial easy to follow. I think it really shows the power of the Power Platform, how easy it is to integrate applications. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or the Microsoft Dynamics communities. Thank you very much.